What up? This is on the Sequel to Sobriety. My name is Rob, and I'm an alcoholic and drug addict. Check this out. I thought I was a pimp, but it was just my drug addiction running wild. There's three moms that I felt like I could have hooked up with if I had really put my right foot forward and done my thing. Let's freaking get into it. So the first one was one of my friend's moms. I don't know. She had a crush on me, but that's just that's exactly how I felt, right? You know what I mean? And this mom, a lot of dudes would always hit on her because this was the spot that everybody went to. A lot of dudes would always hit on her, and except me because I was too scared to do it, right? But there was one time that I went, I knocked, I was looking for my homie, and he wasn't there, and she's like, hey, can you actually, I need help. Can you help me carry my laundry basket to the laundromat, which was like right up the spot a little bit? I said, yeah, whatever, that's cool. Took it for her. And I don't know what, or I was just, and then she told me, she's like, oh, your friend, ya no tarda en llegar. So I was just like, but I never really knew my homie would walk through that parking lot where the laundromat's at. So I was just like, let me just post up right here and see what happens. So I sat down on the bench, and the bench is it's a pretty big bench, right? So I sat on the left side of the bench, and there was like a little bit of room, like right here left to me for someone to sit down. But then the rest of the bench was wide open. Tell me why. This lady comes and she sits literally right next to me on that little spot that was open, right? And she's like flexing her chest, and she has like the V-neck shirt with the buttons, and like her buttons are on shirt unbuttoned, and I'm like taking a peek, you know what I mean? I'm just like on my pervert status. So I was like, oh, my mom is, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like it was, and I was like smoked out of my mind. So I was just like, is this really happening? Like, what's the fuck is going on right now? And obviously, I started fucking getting hella scared because I don't know. I was just like, oh shit, you know what I mean? I was just like, what the fuck is really going on? And then she was like that for a minute, right? And she was like leaning up against me, and I didn't move at all. I was just like, oh hell yeah! I was like, hell yeah! At the same time, maniacal status. And I was just like, all right. And then she stood up, and she stood like right in front of me, and like she turned sideways, and then she's like, oh, I was gonna sit on your lap. And then I was just like, oh. And then she's like, but I don't want people to see, and I don't want people to start spreading rumors that I sleep with my son's friends and shit like that. And I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, it's okay. I ain't gonna spread no rumors, you know what I mean? But fucking, like I'm telling you, maniacal status. I was tripping. I was like, yeah. And then I stayed out there with her because I was so intrigued about what's going on. I stayed out there the whole time she was washing, right? And she was done folding her clothes. And then she's actually like, hey, can you help me take the laundry basket back to my house? And I was like, oh, yeah. You know what I mean? I was like, it's on. And then she was going to like bend over to pick up the basket. And then she's like, oh, ¿sabes qué? Like, no me quiero agachar porque no quiero que me veas todos los calzones. And I was just like, what the And she's like, oh, se me olvidó, no tengo calzones puestos. And I was like, what the fuck? So she told me, she's like, I don't want to bend over because you're going to see my underwear. And then she paused, and then she says, oh, I forgot I'm not wearing any underwear. Like, what friend's mom is going to tell her son's friend that she's not wearing any underwear unless she's trying to throw in directas? You know what I mean? And in my drug addict, smoked out brain, she wanted it. You know what I mean? I was just like, she wanted it. And I swear, if I would have made some type of move or whatever, that I could have gotten lucky, and that's what I thought then, right? I could have gotten lucky, and nothing ever came about that from that, right? I dropped off her laundry basket for her, and then she was like, okay, thank you, and then I was like, yeah, thanks, bye, and I left with blue balls like a motherfucker. I was like, ah, damn. So that's the first one. Then the second one was she was the plug for a while. And I used to live in Spring Valley, and she lived in San Isidro. And it was one time where I had money, I had gotten paid from my work, and I hit her up, and she's like, "Yeah, come through." It was like fucking like 4:35 in the morning, and I was on her way, and I had to stop at 7-Eleven because I had to buy two lighters because I had two pipes, so I had about two. I went to the 7-Eleven, and I don't know why. It's just thought I should, maybe probably most likely because she's a female. I don't know. You know what I mean? I was simping like a motherfucker. I hit her up and I asked her, hey, do you need anything from 7-Eleven? And she's like, yeah, bring me some donuts. And I was like, all right. So I got her one of those Hostess bags of donuts and shit. And then I drove from Spring Valley to San Isidro for a dub, chingada. But those used to last. So I got to her pad and it's dark in her house, right? Like she only has the fucking the light on from the oven, from the stove or whatever. And she's sitting like laid across on the couch. I mean, she's like sitting up like this and her feet are across like the seats of the couch. And she's like, hey, what's up? And I was just like, she never talks like that. You know what I mean? It was like a romantic. I felt it right away. Let me snap my fingers. I felt it right away. Like, oh, shit. Like I knew what I was walking into. You know what I mean? And like, well, again, in my maniacal mind, in my drug addicted, smoked out brain, right? I was just like, what the fuck? And then like, I gave her the money. She gives me a sack and she like grabs my hand a little bit. And she's like, oh, come sit down with me. No sé qué. And I was just like, all right. Like scared like a motherfucker, right? We smoked real bowl real quick. And then like I could just, the tension that was coming off from me and the vibes coming off from me that I was sending was like definitely sexual vibes and sexual attention shit. Because I felt it, dog. I was just like, in that moment, I was maniacal status. That's what I wanted to get into. But again, I got scared. I didn't have the balls to make a move or, you know what I mean? Like, or get denied or something like that. But and when I was like, okay, time for me, I got up and I was like, okay, time for me to bounce. And she's like, oh, what? You got to leave? Like, she was like disappointed that I had to bounce and that I didn't make a first move. I was like, yeah. And then she got up. And before I could leave, she fucking bends over to pick up something in front of the door. And I was like, all of a sudden, you know what I mean? I was just like, what the fuck? I was like, damn. But obviously, she didn't have nobody because she was all smoked out. And I was just like, damn. Whatever that happened, right? And I was just like, what? Like, did this really happen? Is this really happening to me? That's 2 in a row already. And then the third one, right? I'm chilling with one of my homies. We're walking around the apartments, smoking in the buildings. And then we end up in one building. And there's this lady, right? She comes out and we're smoking. But she's the one that packed it. So I'm the one with the pipa. She packed it. So I have to wait till it's done for us to leave. You know what I mean? And my homie that I showed up with originally, he's like, hey, I gotta bounce. I gotta go handle something. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, okay, like you're just gonna leave me hanging here with this lady? Like, what the fuck? And I didn't know era plan con maña, wey. I didn't know. And I was like, okay. And then she's like, oh, you don't mind hanging out with me? And I was like, no, it's cool. I was like, pues ya que, güey, no, de todos modos estoy fumando de grapa, so no hay pedo. And we're smoking. She's like, I don't feel comfortable smoking outside. Let's go inside. And I was like, all right. I was just like, what the fuck? Okay, let's go inside then. So we went inside and we sat on the couch. She sat on one couch and she expected me to sit next to her. So I sat on the 3-seater couch. She sat on the 2-seater. And she's like, oh, why are you sitting so far away? And I was just like, oh, I was like, fuck out of here. And I sat down, right? But we're like close enough to we could reach out our hand and like hand each other the piece and shit. And so we're smoking, we're just chopping it up a little by little, and I could feel, now this time, maniacal status, but I think she was on maniacal status because I could feel the vibe. And then she asks me the number one question that every tweaker asks each other when they want to have sex. What do you like to do when you're high? And I was just like, oh, I like to play video games, maybe write some music, make some beats or whatever. That was not the answer she was looking for. And so I gave her the rundown, right? And I was like, what do you like to do? And then she's like, oh, I like to go into the bedroom, And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then maybe like 2-3 minutes later, I was like, I didn't even have a watch on. I was like, oh. I was like, hey, I actually got to bounce and shit. And she's like, oh, you do? She's like, all of a sudden. And I was like, yeah, it's because I got to bounce, you know what I mean? Whatever. And then, so I bounced. And we had exchanged numbers and that whole time. I don't know what happened, but we had exchanged numbers and I bounced. And like 20 minutes later, I'm already at my house kicking it like, oh, what the fuck? I got out of that one. And I was happy that I got out of one because I was scared. I was really scared. Why am I scared? I don't know. But she hit me up. She says, oh, why did you leave? I wanted to do stuff. And I was like, oh, now all of a sudden I have all the confidence in the world when we're texting. I was like, oh, you wanted to do stuff? How come you didn't tell me? And she's like, well, I was trying to. And I was like, oh, I'm not good at recognizing indirectas and signs and shit like that. You should have just told me straight up. And she's like, oh, okay, maybe next time. And I was like, yeah, for sure, it's next time. There was never a next time. But those are the 3 chances that I had to hook up with 3 senoras, and I fucking didn't do it because I had no confidence in myself, and I was scared, to be honest. And that's what it is.